Orphea, as we all know her, is the original Nexus OC. Kira is the second Nexus OC. But she is pretty cool, in my opinion. So the things we're going to talk about today is I'm going to give a short overview of what the hero does. I'm going to talk about each ability just like I did with Ragnaros. I'm going to talk a little bit about builds. Sadly, Orphea doesn't have as much variety as Ragnaros. I'm going to talk about what your power spikes are and when. I'm going to discuss some tips and tricks. I'll give you some time to ask some questions, and then we'll be going into 2 replays today. One is from a scrim, which I luckily got permission to from our scrim partner to show. And the other is from a quick match I played 5 minutes ago. So you know I didn't cherry pick it. And let's talk about Orphilia. Orphilia has big deeps. She has one of the most disgusting consistent damage output of nearly any hero. This screenshot right here, where Orphea has 270,000 damage, which is more than the rest of her team combined, was from an ARAM I played recently. And I even had 8 deaths, which meant that I was actually dead half the time, and I still had a ridiculous amount of damage. The main things Orphea wants to do is constantly be kiting. You can really take advantage of her great wave clear. It's one of the best rapid wave clears in the game. She has massive outplay potential, and her skill cap is just unbelievably high. So let's talk about her trait, Overflowing Chaos. What's very important with Orphea is that you are always weaving in auto attacks, even if you don't have your trait procced, because it is so much extra DPS on her. Her auto attack animation is extremely short, which means that you're only forced to stand still for like 0.1 second. It gives her extremely high sustain. It's the way she finishes people when they're very low health. And with the talent that you nearly always pick, which is Ancestral Strength at level 1, your auto attack with Overflowing Chaos is a slow. And that slow helps you set up basically your entire kit. It is extremely important. Her Q, Shadow Waltz, is her primary DPS. It resets if you hit enemies, and you can kite with it. But what a lot of people don't realize is that you have 2 seconds to wait with the dash on the Q. So what you want to do when you hit an enemy hero is wait until your dash will actually mean something. If you can get in position to chomp, if you can back off so you can Q again, if you can dodge a skill shot that's being thrown at you, etc. You have 2 seconds to do that. And using your Q immediately just makes you a very easy to hit target with a dash. Additionally, if you miss your Q, you are going to back off for the next 5 to 4 seconds. Because without your Q, you are extremely unsafe. Chomp. Chomp is an extremely high damage ability. It is your wave clear together with your E. It can be a very good finisher, but it's also your sustain because of level 13. And it's sustain damage because of the level 7 resets. But it is melee, which means that you have to be very careful in your positioning, which mainly is about your Q. Additionally, while it can be hard to land, your level 1 slow makes it so much better so much easier to land your W. If you miss your W, you have a 10-second cooldown on it instead of a 2-second cooldown because of the level 7 reset, which means that for the next 10 seconds, you're going to want to stay out of melee. And you're going to be you need to be really aware of how vulnerable you are without your W. E Dread, it's a bit less of an exciting ability for her, but it's actually her primary engage tool because she can slow at massive range and then keep up the slow with her trait. It also provides her with wave clear because she can E a wave, slow it completely, and then clear it with a W with a damage bonus from a level 1 talent. Talking about her ults, I prefer Eternal Feast because it does a lot of things. It's an area denial, which means that whatever point you use Eternal Feast on, enemies have to get away from. It's point control, so if there's a boss, or there's a curse, or there's, say, an Alterac objectives, enemies have to back off or keep taking the damage. And it's also very good wombo follow-up. Crushing Jaws, on the other hand, is not setup. It is just a wombo. It also has a higher cooldown than Eternal Feast, and it has a much lower upper ceiling. That is to say, Eternal Feast can go crazy out of control, while Crushing Jaws is always kind of meh, in my opinion, after having played with both of them for quite a bit. Her builds are kind of limited, sadly. Q build exists, it's fun, but it's outshined. E build kind of exists, but it's also outshined by the normal build. And most of the time you're going to be taking trait/W build, a combination of those talents. Q build looks roughly like this. Q1 and Q4 are decent together. Q13 doesn't really synergize with any of them, but it gives you a little bit of health. To be clear, Q1 is extra damage on your tip. Q4 is less cooldown on your Q overall and less cooldown on the tip. Q13 is spell armor when you hit Q and 15% bonus damage while you have that spell armor. And Q16 is percentage damage on your Q. It also takes Final Toccata, which is a reset for your Q. But the problem with Q build is that while it can be very high poke, you don't have a persistent slow because you have Q level 1. You have to hit the tip for most of your effects to work, which means that it is at a range where enemies can quite easily dodge it. A single miss will have it on a 4 seconds cooldown, which is quite long for your basically only real ability to be on cooldown for. And honestly, it's just outshined by the other build. E build, you'll see that I've only highlighted 2 talents, and that's because there is no real E build. I actually looked at the stats, and if you take E1 and E4, the most picked talent with these is actually an ultimate. There is no level 4, 13, or 16 that is picked most with these 2 talents, which basically means this build doesn't really exist, and please don't pick it, especially E1. E7 can be picked, Mind Devourer, but it is picked in Q build. E1 is a very bad talent, which you should not be picking. And trait and W build, you'll see that I haven't highlighted a level 4 talent, despite there being both a W and a trait talent on that tier. The reason for that is that the level 4 is quite situational / playstyle dependent. The level 1 is completely mandatory. The level 7 cooldown reduction is what enables most of this playstyle. But the level 4, which I will go into a little bit more detail after this, can do one of 3 things. If you pick the W talent, you're mainly picking it for a dash that you can activate during a route, and the bonus health. The bonus health is Reverse Glass Cannon, and Reverse Glass Cannon turns out to be pretty good on its own. However, it also really cuts down on your chase potential in fights, because you cannot use Chomp to just deal damage, as you will back off from the chase. That's not really an issue in a lot of comps, but it can be feels bad. The level 4 trait talent, Overflowing Chaos, makes your trait do increased damage if you have 3 stacks. The main reason to pick that is the level 13, which gives you instant 3 stacks. But the problem with it is it often doesn't do a lot before 13. And even with 13, you still need to be in melee range landing chomps. And while the extra healing is nice and the extra damage is nice, it often doesn't actually make the difference, I feel. And my personal favorite on level 4 is actually the Q talent. The tip bonus, where it becomes a very low cooldown, is not even what I pick it for. I pick Q4 so that when I miss my Q, I'm only crippled for 4 seconds instead of 5 seconds. And that 1 second shaving off of your effectiveness is actually really big. Power spikes. When you're playing Orphea, the power spikes to look out for, you've seen I've noted 4, which is a lot for a hero, is level 7, when you can start dealing massive damage. Level 13, when you start getting a lot of sustain through that W resets, because not only are you getting a shield, you're also getting massive trait stacks, which constantly gives you more and more healing. The level 16 makes your single target burst very, very high, and also shuts down a lot of what can counter you earlier on, such as an EDC with block talents. And the level 20 is 60% spell power, which is completely nuts. And what these actually mean in the game is that level 7 is when you can start being aggressive damage-wise, and level 13 is when you can start diving. Level 16 is mainly just damage, and level 20 is also just damage. But the 13 and 7 together are a lot of what Orphea is, to me at least. The tips we've talked about, I've mentioned all of these already, is that you don't have to use the dash from your Q after using Q. You have 2 whole seconds to activate this, and in fact, if you are rooted and you Q, you cannot move, but you keep the dash for up to 2 seconds after hitting Q, which means that when the root ends against, say, Azul, you can instantly dash. You should also always be weaving auto attacks. As Orphea, your auto attacks are so fast, there is no reason ever not to be using them. And if you're having trouble missing with your W, make sure that the target that you are Wing is slowed with either your auto attack or your E. And as I mentioned before, your E is an engage tool. Any questions so far before we dive into the replays? It's 2 seconds after the Q hits an enemy, correct. Got a ping. I have a question about Azurite's build. I don't know Azurite's build from the top of my head. Could you tell me which? Trait 1 Q4, E7, Miasma. E7 and Miasma is basically a whole different style of Orphea, one that personally I believe to be inferior in basically every way, because basically everything that build does, you get a tiny bit more burst, but you lose a lot of the sustain monster that Orphea is. And your burst usually is high enough, I also play in competitive by the way, your burst usually is high enough that you're barely impacted, because the E adds about 300 damage, and while that is a lot, it also requires a lot of stacking on heroes, which means that Orphea can't be clearing waves during that time. And it also means that you are a lot more vulnerable to being dove, because Miasma does a lot less than W13. But you have to pick Miasma if you don't have the level 7 reset, because else you only have a talent every 10 seconds. It's not wrong, it's different, but I am not a fan. Personally, if it comes to competitive drafting, which is the most difficult to draft in, Orphea is usually reserved as a later pick because she can be shut down. But what shuts her down mainly is ranged damage that can just completely outrange her. And surprisingly, Gul'dan W build is fairly hard for her to deal with because it can out-sustain her raw burst while eating through her health pool. Though Gul'dan W build in and of itself is a bit of a meme. But very heavy and targeted CC chains will also tear through an Orphea, especially if she isn't respecting them. And like I said, if you miss your Q, you need to back off for the until it is off cooldown, and that's exactly the problem. Which even I still make that mistake, is going in without your Q up. Li Ming / Kira. Yep, Li Ming is not a hero you will target because Li Ming can get out of everything you do. You can slow her with your E, you can slow her with your D, but she will still have blink. And it is low cooldown enough that you can never really corner her. But that doesn't have to be an issue because you just don't target Li Ming. And she should not be able to hit you because you have your Q dash, yes, you have long cast times, but you also have a high mobility yourself with those cast times, at least if you're hitting them. And if you're hitting them in melee range, this is a chomp, that means that you should be getting a lot of work done in the team fight. And if you're hitting them at range, Li Ming won't be able to hit anything. Kira, I can see how she can be a problem. It's mainly going to be, first of all, you don't want to fight Kira until level 13, and level 13 is what allows you to be a lot less frightened by Kira, because she has only for one stun with her ult, not with her ult, with her E, which if it's out, you can chomp her afterwards by either Eing or auto-attacking her and then pressing W. You back off just a tiny bit so she can't walk completely through you, and then you can hit her after her E. And Sylvanas, again, especially post 13 with Remorseless, which gives her +1 auto attack range, she's very hard for you to hit, and she can hit you back. But staying at the tip of your Q range and or actually your auto attack range against their team, making openings for yourself with E is the primary way for you to deal with that. And hitting others, because as long as you are hitting others, someone like Sylvanas or Li Ming can be very hard to hit, but as long as you are hitting others, you are getting good lifesteal, which will keep you alive. Any other questions? No? Okay, I'm going to move on to my replay. I have 2 for you today. This should be with sound. See, my settings are reset again. This is on a previous version of the game, which meant I had to load this beforehand. And this is a scrim with my competitive team. I'm going to have to turn the sound way down. Against Go Next. Orphea was drafted last year. The draft order was, let me get my stats of the storm. The draft order was they first picked Anna, we picked Johanna Blaze, they picked Maiev Ufer, we picked Sylvanas Stukov, they picked Leoric Drunkrat, and we last picked Orphea. So Orphea was our counter pick to their draft. Now, why did I like Orphea here? The main reason is that their draft should not be able to hurt Orphea, because Orphea should outrange basically every hero on their team. Ufer with a slow cannot reach me. Drunkrat with his traps, unless I face check a bush where he has a trap, can't really reach me. Leoric I can dance around because he's very immobile. He only has his E, which makes him an easy target. Maiev can dive me, but I can punish her just as much. And especially when she uses Cage, I can use Eternal Feast on the Cage, and she has to leave her own cage. And Anna, if I ever get to her, is dead. So for the early game, especially since this is a competitive game. I'm mainly just going to be, also, I have my epic pleb layout. What I'm mainly going to be focusing on here is clearing waves. So we're chilling, waiting for the wave. And the way that I want to clear this wave is with my E and my W. Now, because their entire team is here, I can't use my W aggressively. However, I can E, let my team take some heat, and then W the melee minions to get them finished off. Now, I am a bit late in this rotation, but I can poke Orpha for free, and life is nice. Then when the mid-wave clashes, because I have my entire team with me and Johanna has her W, I don't have to use my E, I just have W to wave. And Chelvin here is getting poked quite a bit, Blade is getting poked quite a bit, and I'm already at 3.4k damage. I want to see if Leoric is vulnerable. No, of course he isn't, he's a Leoric, but I can help Blaze clear this wave. And my team can clear this fine. And I think from this point on in this replay, we get settled into the clearing rhythm quite well. I W through the wave, I still hit, I'm hitting enemy heroes, but I'm still hitting the wave during all of those hits. I catch top. And in typical HOTS fashion, the only thing that really matters is the waves. Though I can bully Junkrat out of lane. Actually, let's look at that in a little bit more detail. So I come up here, I have my E and W, and I can just instantly clear the wave. And I use my E on the wave. But I see that Junkrat is really overextended. So I use my W on Junkrat, which chunks him auto attack, which slows him, which lets me land my Q on him. He uses his concussion mine. Sadly, I don't have cooldown reduction on my W yet, so I can't actually kill him here. And he gets out. But because I've been auto-attacking him all this time, he's now at basically no health, and he has to either tap, have Ufer/Anna heal him up, or go to base. But he doesn't respect my Johanna's rotation, and he does. In this game, I went for Allegrissimo, which is the cooldown reduction on Shadow Waltz baseline, which means if you miss Shadow Waltz, you only have a 4-second cooldown, and if you hit people on the tip, it becomes a very low cooldown. Now, I don't actually care about the tip cooldown. All I care about is the 4 seconds. Here I can clear waves. I know Ufer is basically alone because I have vision of his team. And on to clearing more waves. Well, actually, we have Skerfuffle here first. We're still not level 7. I'm not actually that strong in this fight. This is actually an overextension by us, in my opinion. Though we'd still chunk Chelvin. I know my team can get mid, so I can get top because it was crashing at our towers. By the way, if anyone has any questions during the replay, feel free to ask me here. And this is an obvious overextension. Actually, I want to highlight what I did wrong here. This is still fine. If I go to the right now, I'm basically untouchable. But Monkey see low health bar. And Monkey think, maybe I can go back in. And this is still fine. I cannot kill him now, though. If I just go left up, I can go clear this wave. This is not where I want to go. And I definitely should have died for it, which I did. And then a respawn, and I just go and clear waves. With my Johanna, I can clear waves alone, or I can clear waves with Johanna with Condemn plus Chomp, which is what we're doing. We give him the turn in because it's hard for us to interrupt right now. But we didn't actually seem all that interested in turning in anyway, which was fine. Here I'm the only person still going for Leoric. I'm zoning Leoric off of my Johanna. As you can see, I can chomp him. He has to dash out, but I know that he's going to have to cancel his E because he's getting hit by Blaze. So I can hit him with my Q, and even though he's very low, I have to back off because this is overextending. But still, he's now extremely chunked, just with me and Blaze hitting him. The movement speed slow on Orpher here makes it very hard for him to do anything. I missed my Q, but I can still get a chomp off, slow him some more, and he's kind of sad.
Someone had a question.
Yes. Well, I'm always auto-attacking in between every ability cast, basically regardless of what. But this early on in the game, we're not actually looking to like hard commit to a single kill, because especially if you look at our team comp, Blaze is our only hard CC right now. Stukov does not have a root yet, and Johanna isn't a hero without Blessed Shield. So basically we don't have the tools to lock anyone down. And if I just use all of my abilities in succession on a single target, they will run out of it because my Chomp plus Q have more than 1 second cast time. Does that answer your question? Anyway, here, clearing waves. Clearing more waves, hitting a Junkrat while I'm at it, bullying him to very low health. And here at level 10, I pick Eternal Feast. And Johanna actually picks Falling Sword in this game because she feels she needs it to survive Entomb. And like I said earlier, Crushing Jaws is actually really hard to hit without some sort of setup. Even your 25% slow usually isn't enough to hit this because a 1.25 second delay is really, really big. Eternal Feast is a longer delay, but it's in a much bigger area if they're walking away from you. I will try to showcase this in try mode after this game. What I mean exactly by that. No. I'm gonna be honest, I would never pick Crushing Jaws in a competitive game. In fact, I have completely shied away from ever picking Crushing Jaws because I believe in the situations where Crushing Jaws is better, Eternal Feast will still get more value throughout the course of the game, also because of its lower cooldown, but also because the cap on Eternal Feast, if you have a very long CC chain, is much better. Because if this hits twice, it is infinitely better than Crushing Jaws, even with the half-second stun and pull. Now, I want to actually show. I actually want to look at this Eternal Feast because it is a zoning Eternal Feast. What I mean by that is it denies the enemies a way to go here. Anna has to back off, and both Leoric and Orpher have to walk to the left, and Vomayev, who is caught in the middle, has to use his D. This isn't really when he wants to use D, but if he doesn't use D and make the Eternal Feast miss, the Orpher has to walk through the Eternal Feast and will probably die here. And that's just a small use of Eternal Feast in a wide open area that can make the wide open area very dangerous for the enemy team. Now, again, I would like to point out that this, what I did afterwards was a huge mistake. This diving in. This is still fine. However, I cannot go into melee with a Leoric for no real reason here. Because I'm just going to take too much damage. Now, luckily, they don't actually punish me, and my team is a hero. So we actually get the counter engage on them. And Uther has to burn Divine Shield, while Johanna uses Falling Sword on the Eye of Horusing Johanna. Ooh, skipped over teamfight there. My bad. And here it's just poking as much as possible. Leoric actually seems overextended, so we get to kill him. And I'd like to point out just how much damage Orphea is pumping out here. Comparable to Maiev, who is constantly getting her Q resets on our tanks. And that's all because, if you look at Leoric, he is basically full health here, so he feels fine rotating through this. But a Chomp, 470, auto attack, 203, Q, 300, auto attack, again, 200. I get another Chomp, I get a Q off, 203, and I could have had a Chomp, which would be another 600. And that's all in a very small amount of time, because he tries to rotate through an Orphea. And that is massively disrespecting just how much damage Orphea pumps out. Sadly, I do miss my Chomp afterwards. I get knocked into my FW with the Drunkard thing, and I believe I die here. I actually die to the Drunkard Q and Anna anti-heal. Of course, this is a competitive team. The enemy teams are no slouches. Here, I miss my Q. My E doesn't really get anything done. I'm just going to back off. My Q is back. I can poke a little bit, but I don't want to go in. I'm outnumbered. And Uther tries to stun me, but he just can't get into range. This Eternal Feast I also want to talk about because it is another zoning Eternal Feast. It doesn't get any damage done, but it does mean a lot for the way they have to position, because Uther wants to go to the right here, and Junkrat wants to like fire Qs and stuff at people. But if he goes in here, Junkrat is going to feed the Eternal Feast. If Uther goes to the right, he's going to constantly get hit by the Eternal Feast. And this forces Junkrat basically out of the fight entirely. And I get to chase down the lone Uther at this point. And while the rest of my team is chasing down the Junkrat, the Anna is Eye of Horusing him, but I get onto the Anna, which forces her to cancel her Eye of Horus because she loses half her health in 1 second of my ability rotation. We hear Junkrat ult, so we back off. We're all quite low anyway. I know my Sylvanas has this wave, so I can check the bush with my Q. I don't need to use my E and W. Now, while Leoric heals all of the damage I deal back to him up, I know that alone he cannot touch my health pool either. Here, Leoric entombs my Johanna, but I basically nullify this entomb because Maiev can't stay in the entomb, and Leoric can't body block Johanna out of the entomb either. So Maiev has to teleport out, and Leoric has to walk away, and the entire entomb is completely wasted because of Eternal Feast. And this is the slow but steady value from Eternal Feast that I really, really like. Just the small zoning things. While it can be hard to use, if you see these opportunities, it is a really, really nice ult to have. Here's just a little bit of poking. We get a Web Weaver. And we're not really looking to fight. Stukov just harfed, so we're just gonna chill here, though we know Anna is middle. And we're engaging a little bit too early. Stukov isn't here, Blaze isn't here. But this actually turns out alright. Maiev and Leoric are forced to back off due to my Eternal Feast, and Uther has to go closer to our team, which brings, and because of my Eternal Feast, their team is now super split again. And Uther has to basically run away, because if he stays here, he's gonna die. Now sadly, I am at very low mana here, and I believe in this fight I even run U. I look for an E to slow someone. If I slow someone, I know my tower is gonna, their tower is gonna be hitting my minions, and I can Q them freely. However, instead I auto attack Uther, who steps quite far out, and then I can keep landing Qs on him because he's slowed. And even these single stack auto attacks are dealing massive damage to Uther. And he has to be healed by Anna. He keeps having to heal himself because of that. Now I miss my chomp, which means that my threat in this fight is actually quite limited at this point. And because I missed that chomp, I can't actually kill this Uther very quickly the way that I would want to. And so I have to keep playing a little bit passive. And this, Eternal Feast again, only 50-second cooldown. I'm blocking them from going into their base again, which lets me hop onto Leoric and chunk him for half of his health. And that's the kind of really, really sunburst that Orphea can do. I barely have enough mana to cast any abilities. But all I need is Q and Chomp. And Chomp costs 60 mana and Q refunds itself. So Maiev cages my team, but they already have 2 dead. And I can chase Junkrat for free. And this is kind of tragic, because if I hadn't used Chomp, I would have been able to use it on the Anna. Maiev is 1v3ing, she loses that. But I actually dodge Sleep Dart, auto attack, body block her from entering her own base, hit Q again because she's slowed, wait until my Q is almost back, dash, Q, auto attack, kill Anna, with only my Q, no mana, under her creep. And that's why I find Orphea fun. Anyway, the rest of this game, we wipe them one more time. At top lane. And this is what I was talking about, actually. This I really want to look at. This is what I was talking about, that Maiev gets an engage on us with Cage. So she catches me and Uther in a cage, and me and Stukov, and Ufer and Leoric are all there. But I Eternal Feast her cage, and Maiev gets Divine Shielded, but Leoric was still in. Ufer assumes the Eternal Feast is over, but it hit the Leoric because he wants to keep following up on the cage. And this feast does a lot of damage. I'm going to roll back one more time because this team fight goes very, very fast. Which is going to be a lot of Orphea games. A lot of stuff happens very quickly. And you have to be ready for that. So I get out of the bunker. I know that Anna is using Eye of Horus and is really vulnerable. So I Q her, get close to her, auto attack. Before any ability cast, use that auto attack for free. W her, auto attack again, heal for 464. Q her again, use an E, get a dash to get away from the Maiev. Auto attack her for health. Chomp. Suddenly the Maiev was replaced by Leoric, but okay. Heal. And their entire team was wiped. And that's the kind of super high energy tension that W build shines in. Because it trades super, super well in these kinds of situations. Any questions at this point? I'm gonna have to reshare my screen when my game has finished loading again, because it was an old replay. No questions? Good to hear. Oh, I actually have to restart entirely. Bear with me here, Blizzard doesn't like it when you load old replays. And I have a second replay that I want to look at. Like I said, I played a couple of minutes before this presentation. 20 minutes before. And this was just a random quick match. I was queued with the Oriole. Because while I just showcased, a very organized, high rank, competitive game, this is Quick Match, and as you all know, Quick Match is a complete fiesta. But Orphea likes fiestas. Finally got around to selecting some amounts. You do, and I'm going to show you a couple times in this game where he does. He does threaten you, but you threaten him back quite as hard. And a lot of it is a game of chicken and mouse. Is a game of chicken, not mouse. A game of chicken with his deflect. Because he's going to predict when you are using your Q and W, and you're going to predict when he is using his deflect. I know that Hammer is always going to be a Q target that I can hear. Also, randomly, Malganier was in my quick match, French caster. So I can Q her to get out. I'm just going to keep queuing targets, but I am still level 1, so I'm not actually all that threatening. I want to go bot lane, but I realized my Z-boost there, and I go top. Orphea is not really considered a laner, but she can sit in a lane just fine. And in fact, I can trade really well into Artanis. I want to hit the minion wave here. I don't have the luxury of chomping it because it is so far out. And in fact, I get ganked by Genji. So, and I even get hit by the Artanis, but I Q him, I stand still, they keep moving further to the left. When he's about to hit me, I go to the right, I chomp 2 of them, heal from it, Q, heal, and Artanis kills himself on my towers. Now I do hang around a lot because if my fountain hasn't healed me properly yet, I will just die to the Genji. But I hit him once with my E, I heal a little bit off him, and I'm in fairly good shape in the lane, in fact. Here I can just auto-attack the minions because everything's on cooldown. And they're missing soak because it's quick match. So Genji comes back. I'm just going to clear the wave. He happened to be in it. I miss everything, so I kind of just want to dance around my minions so he can't Q me. And he jumps out because he's scared of me despite having no abilities. I know this mid is being unsoaked, so I go there. I clear it instantly. Though I actually used Chomp before my E hit the backline minions, which meant that I didn't clear it instantly. We do give up this tribute because we chased Hammer with 3 people and nobody thought it prudent to think about tribute. And one thing I'd like to highlight in this game, I took Backbiter. The reason that I took Backbiter is mainly because of Genji here. But it does prevent me from chasing a couple times, which I'm going to highlight in this game as well. Though I will still pick Insatiable, just because it is a really, really, really good talent. And let's see, Orphea. This perspective, yep. This is just overextending, as you do in quick match. I'm sure it's never happened to any of you. I don't want to be in front to tank everything, so I'm just going to chill here at the objective. Genji comes. And now, how do you deal with Genji? Because my Nazeebo kills himself on the Genji, because Genji deflects all of Nazeebo's stuff. And in this case, Genji walks out. I know I have to walk out as well, because an Anduin plus a Genji will stomp on me, especially if I don't have E and W. These are the cooldowns I have to respect, so we give up another tribute. But we get Hammer in mid. I wanted to chase him, I wanted to auto-attack slow him, but I have Backbiter, which meant that I backed off from him. I miss Q, which basically means, adios, I'm gonna go. But then they keep poking Ariel, and Ariel stays in, so I stay in. And this is actually something that I want to highlight, with Backbiter specifically, is how you can use it to use your positioning. Because I know Artanis is going to stand still while auto-attacking me. So because the Chomp hits a little to the sides as well, I can hit Chomp like this. And sadly, my Q just went out because I still had a dash from it. My plan was to dash back and then Chomp him again. And Artanis takes a lot of damage from this. Here again, I dash behind him with W. Miss my Q, which sucks, but we still get him eventually. Oh no, we don't. And I think I die here. Or no. We actually get Artanis. So that's what I meant with kiting. Is that when two heroes with no real engage are chasing you, you can just keep slowing them using Backbiter, using Shadow Waltz to dance out of their range and never let them hit you. And I heal so much from this, in fact. And here I'm too to even Q. But I get my Hearth. I see top is unsoaked, so I get top. Sadly, we missed another tribute, so we're actually cursed at this point, despite being 7 kills up and 2 levels ahead. But such is life. I have nothing, so I used all my abilities, missed them all. That happens. And this team fight is already kind of won by the time we're here. But Genji keeps going in. He used his E, so I know that I can Q him. He dives in on me. I miss my Q, but I can still chomp him. I get my Q back. Eternal Feast would have killed most of our heroes. Sadly, Genji is not most of our heroes. But even Genji, I can still keep chasing her. Until eventually he's baited to go onto the Orphea, and I think he dies? Yeah, he dies. But while that was happening, I switched targets onto the much easier to get Anduin. I miss my W, I miss my Q, which means that I have no way to slow him except W. But I'm able to get my W. Sadly, I have to back off due to Backbiter, and I'm able to get my slow off on him. Now, I want to be using W for DPS after a Q here, but if I do that, I will get out of range. So I have to only use Q here and E. And I can use W when it will kill him. Sadly, in this case, I got blinded by Artanis, which means that I basically just have to back off, because any attack here is just going to waste my chaos. Sadly, I have 0.1 second left of blind, which means that I waste my free chaos, but that's fine. And I think I die in this case, but it's a valiant effort against 3 heroes. Clear waves. I encounter a random Genji. Now, how do I deal with Genji? Is I wait for him to use something predictable like his D, Q him, slow him, and now I know he's going to protect because he just walked into me, which is what every Genji is going to do. So I'm not using E, I'm not using W. I'm just going to wait for this. As you can see, I held my dash for a really long time. E him, W him, auto attack, and he's dead. Here, Hammer can't flee to the left because of the feast. Wants to flee to the right, but there's a fort there. Doesn't have Z, I suppose. So she is slowly killing herself. And I can get myself out of this terrible Zarya ult because, as in the ult itself is terrible, not this use of it. Please pick Expulsion Zone, because Chomp can be used during that. And here, I would be using Chomp if I didn't have Backbiter for damage. Instead, sadly I missed my Q. I have to back off because I'm very low. Dodge the Zarya Qs. Just keep kiting her because I outrange her. And we make it out alive. Then we res again. Genji, just keep auto-attacking him. Don't have to use abilities if he's being unpredictable. All of these auto-attacks are super free. Hold my auto-attack till his deflect is over, and a kill. Now I just want to back off here because what am I going to do with 2 hammer under fort? Team fights kind of happens without me. That happens. I used Eternal Feast somewhere. But we finally get another tribute. And again, I'm going to try to be fairly patient using all my abilities here. He E's out, which means I have to wait for my Q. I dismount him so that I can actually hit my Q. But I want to wait for my E, which is going to slow him. So I E him. I just nip him with my E, which means that I get a Chaos Auto Attack, which at level 16 is going to do a lot of damage. And that also lets me land my other abilities because he's slowed. I try to prevent, I believe, the Anduin from rotating through his towers, but that fails. Don't be afraid to just throw an Eternal Feast willy-nilly. It's a very short cooldown, and you'll learn when it... you'll find when it has most impact if you just use it a lot. Anytime an enemy wants to go through an area. Now here I miss my Q, which means that my W is the only thing I will be able to rely on. But it is really good sustain. Sadly, I can't Q the Anduin because he has movement speed on 13. And Artanis dives into our team. And he can't run from an Orphea because of the slow and the Q dashes. Again, she dives us again. I slow him, use Q, but because they're on the fort, there's no chasing someone. And this is the dancing that Orphea can really do around people, especially with Backbiter. Mainly, to do this, it's to be very patient with your Q dashes. Here, I'm not hitting the Zarya because she has her shield up. As long as she has low energy, she's not gonna hurt. I hit both Genji and Zarya with the Q. Create distance so she can't auto-attack me. I notice Artanis is coming. I auto-attack him. I'm just gonna keep queuing to get away from people. This is really pushing the hero to the limits of what you can do. But I wanted to show how ridiculous she can be. The main thing is to keep in mind the Q dash, because when you can dodge all of her skill shots, such as the Anduin E here, or the Genji E, or you can create distance between Genji and yourself by queuing someone other than the Genji, they become a lot easier to deal with. I want to use my E again before I use my other abilities, so that I can land them. But that was the game. Now, there were a couple of things that one thing in particular that I still wanted to show, which was in how to hit Crushing Jaws. Yes. And one of the reasons that I don't like Crushing Jaws is also here. So I'm going to set both of us to level 10. And we're going to meet in the middle. Now, if okay, stand still. So if I slow the Oriole here with my auto attack, and she runs away from me, and I use ult on her, it's gonna miss. And if I slow her again, and I R even further out, I have to R at the edge of the R range, and the Crushing Jaws has a very short cast range. But if that barely hit. A lot of time that will miss, but the way that you want to hit Crushing Jaws is that if I'm standing here, I stand over here. If I slow Oriole over there and he tries to walk to his gate, wait. He's going to be walking along the long distance of my R. Because this ult is much wider than it is long. But that means that you have to be standing to the side of where people are trying to run to. And that can be very, very tricky. Now, if I do the same thing with Eternal Feast, and I slow the Oriole, he can't run through the entire thing without being hit at least once, which will keep that area zoned for even longer. And I think the extra zoning, plus being able to land this on people that are running away from you, or running towards you, is much more valuable than the extra stun on this, because the damage is only 60 more. But we can also compare cast range. Eternal Feast from here can hit their towers. However, Crushing Jaws from here can only hit here. And this cast range is incredibly important for actually being able to use the ability where you want it to. And I think that was it for the material I had prepared. Are there any more questions? For Orphea in particular, there are no talents that I would really change depending on the map. Mainly because her talent variety is pretty meh. Her level 4 is the most open talent here in my opinion. While level 1 is absolutely mandatory, level 10 is kind of preference. But I think W7, W13 and Dead Magic are much too strong to pass up. And Eldritch Conduit is just a 60% spell power boost, which is completely crazy. So what Orphea can do, and for a team comp, is that for a mage, she has really good wave clear on her own. So she's not dependent on, say, a Johanna hitting the wave for her to actually be able to clear it fully. Her EW will completely clear a wave. And that means that she can be played with tanks that have bad wave clear. And that set up your combos, such as, you know, Arthas. He has a root. People that get kept in place are very easy targets for Orphea to hit. So mainly just tanks with easy setup for her. Blaze Stun, for example, or Mal'Ganis Sleeps. Meanwhile, someone like Mei is going to be a lot harder and overlaps with what she does, because what Mei wants to do is she wants to use her stun on, say, a point like a boss or a, what's it called, full sky objective to keep people from going on there. But that is actually just the same as Eternal Feast. And May can't set anyone up with a stun so that Orphea can freely hit someone. If that makes sense. So what you're really looking for are the CC tanks. Diablo can be good, but it's a bit hard because Orphea also wants to chomp a lot. And Diablo can knock them out of the chomps a lot while stunning them against walls because they can be knocked far away. So heroes with very sudden displacement, such as Diablo, can also make her miss her spells. Same with EDCW. If you're not careful and you're a bit uncoordinated, it can be very easy to make Orphea miss. And when Orphea misses, she has no ability for 10 or 4 seconds. Or 5. Which makes her very, very hard to play. Yeah, for sure. Muradin, a noob, for sure. Garrosh, his knockback isn't unpredictable, usually, and puts them close to Orphea usually, so that she can chomp them, so that's usually a good combo. Meanwhile, someone like Tyrael is going to be very awkward to play with, or even Stitches. So yeah, Nubarak, Muradin, Arthas, Blaze, Mal'Ganis. And in particular, someone that's really, really good with Orphea is Varian, because of Taunt. Because you can blow up one person within the taunt duration a lot of the time. And for the support slot, might as well do that. Orphea likes to go deep and but she also and to burst, but she also likes sustained fights. Someone like Anna can set her up really well for Sleep Dart, and she can really abuse Nano Boost. But Anna can also cry herself to sleep because she's trying to hit Healing Dart on her Orphea, and Orphea is dashing all over the place with her Q and W. So this is a bit of a risky combo to play it with. Meanwhile, someone like Deckard, his CC setup is also really good for Orphea with the root. And anyone that can heal from ranged as well. Lucio can be awkward because Lucio knocks people out a lot, same with Oriel. But someone like Brightwing can heal Orphea basically no matter where she is with her trade and with Blink Heal. So she can dive a bit deeper, which she likes. So I think that's it for today. Or any more questions? No. The short answer is no. The long answer is pick Eldritch Conduit. And the longer answer is 60% spell power is better than whatever tiny power spike this is, because Eternal Feast will not be active for long. And most of the times where I used it, in fact, it didn't even hit anyone, but it just forced the enemy team to split apart. Yes, it is pickable, but Eldritch Conduit is insane. Yes, because often you will use Final Toccata when you miss your Q, but then you will instantly cast Q again. But the reason why you missed your Q will probably still be there, and that's probably that they're not slowed. So then you miss your Q again, and then you kind of are sad. If you pick Crushing Jaws, Engulfing Oblivion can be a very nice finisher, but again, Crushing Jaws is insanely difficult to make work except as follow-up to existing CC, because landing this on your own CC is very, very, very hard. And in the cases where Engulfing Oblivion looks really good, probably so will Eternal Feast without a level 20. So the issue there is that Varian looks every 16 seconds with taunt. But if a single taunt fails to lead to a kill, your combo already falls apart. Because then the cooldown instead of 16 seconds becomes 70 seconds. And the 25 armor comes out after you've already landed your E and probably your Q. So only your W and one auto attack will benefit. Or you're delaying your entire combo for way too long. So it is super, super awkward to use, even in that case. Meanwhile, if they're taunted, they might get hit by 2 Eternal Feasts, which is going to be more damage, usually. Not post 20, but before then for sure. But I'm going to call it quits here for today. Thank you very much for coming. I hope it was informative for everyone. And I hope to see you during the next Dev Days.